Hey guys, Adriana Jimenez here with the ring's very own Dougie Fischer. Dougie, we are here for Fight Week. Vasily Lomachenko versus Anthony CROLLA. Fight at Staples Center, LA's premier venue, with a lot of British people out here supporting Anthony CROLLA. I'd like to get your thoughts on what you think we're going to be seeing on Friday night.
Well, I'll say this. Had this fight taken place in Manchester, England, it would have sold out the Manchester Arena. There would be 20,000 people in that arena, and there'd be another 10,000 outside. And, you know, we won't get that kind of turnout here in Los Angeles, but I think we'll have a decent turnout. I think it's a good card. I think it's a strong undercard. And there should be a pretty strong fan walk-up on Friday. And I think CROLLA will have English fans in the house. And they're going to cheer him on, and they're going to motivate him. And CROLLA is going to make it a fight. It's going to be, I mean, Vasily Lomachenko is almost the consensus pound-for-pound king out there. Ring Magazine sees him as #1 pound-for-pound. ESPN sees him as #1 pound-for-pound. I think the Transnational Boxing Rankings has him #1 pound-for-pound. And there's other publications and experts out there, and just fans that have other folks, have Terrence Crawford, #1 pound-for-pound. You can't go wrong with Terrence Crawford. Maybe the Boxing Writers Association of America, or maybe they have Lomachenko. But Lomachenko's up there. He's one of the elite boxers, along with Crawford, along with Canelo Alvarez, along with Triple G, along with Alexander Usyk, along with the monster from Japan, Inoue. He's in that rarefied air, and it's very special whenever he fights. However, sometimes his fights aren't that entertaining. Like, you know, his style may not mesh well with other boxers. It was a little bit awkward with Jose Pedraza, kind of a tall, rangy boxer himself. He got the job done, obviously, and you know, added to his lightweight title collection. He is recognized as champion by the Ring Magazine. But with CROLLA, I think we get an entertaining fight, because CROLLA he's aggressive, but he's crafty in there too. There's ring craft to that. So he's not going to be just one-dimensional in his approach. And we've seen, like, CROLLA mix it up with elite boxers before. The first fight with Jorge Linares, I thought was a competitive fight. I thought, and a good fight. And that's what I like. It's great when boxers are matched with hard-nosed veterans who have experience, but they also have that will to try to take another man's heart. And I think any boxer that tries to take Lomachenko's will or try to take his heart, he's going to up his game, and he's going to try to take their spirit. And I know CROLLA has a lot of fighting spirit. So, you know, does it go 12 rounds? I think it does. But even if it doesn't go the distance, it's going to be entertaining while it lasts. I mean, a lot
of people don't give CROLLA a lot of a chance, or, you know, how much of a chance do you give him?
Maybe those people aren't familiar with him, though. I think if you're not a British fan, maybe you're not that familiar with CROLLA, and maybe the first time you saw CROLLA fight was like the Linares rematch. You know what I mean? And Linares handled him in the rematch. I think he scored a knockdown. But if you go back, if you watch the first fight between Linares, who was on top of his game, absolutely on top of his game as lightweight champ, if you see that first fight, CROLLA gave him a tough fight. In fact, CROLLA was starting to take over the fight in the middle rounds, and I think Linares hurt him and made him, you know, kind of had him sort of reset. But it was still a competitive fight. And, you know, as we know, when Linares fought Lomachenko, Linares made Lomachenko look human. It was a competitive fight all the way through until Lomachenko, you know, took it to another level and stopped him. But Lomachenko had to get off the canvas for the first time against Linares. So, I mean, if you use Jorge Linares as a measuring stick, it kind of lets you know, no, when CROLLA is on his A game and he's motivated, he can mix it up with elite-level boxers, which is what Lomachenko is.
So for the people who are saying this is an easy knockout victory for Lomachenko,
that word gets thrown around in boxing too much. Easy work, easy. There's almost, at this level, there's almost no such thing as easy. Even if the fighter makes it look easy, it's not easy. It wasn't easy for that fighter to get his mind, body, and spirit to that level to make it look easy. And when that fighter's in the ring, there's nothing easy about it. I don't think at this level, I don't think there's any such thing as easy. And no, I don't think CROLLA will be easy for Lomachenko. I really don't.
After Friday night, if victorious over CROLLA, do you see Lomachenko getting that fight with IBF champion Comey?
Yeah, I think that's the plan, because originally it was supposed to be a unification bout against Richard Comey on April 12th. Yeah, you know, that's why we're getting the mandatory. I think he's the mandatory challenger, CROLLA is, for the WBA. So one thing in boxing, if you're going to be an undisputed champion, if you're going to be a unified champion, mandatory challenges come with all those belts. And Lomachenko's doing the right thing by honoring the mandatory obligation that the WBC has set forth. But you know, one thing about the sanctioning organizations, some of them have rules where if you're going into a unification bout, they'll back off with their mandatory. They'll give you like some time to unify titles. So, and I think that's the plan. Is as soon as possible, you know, later this year. If Lomachenko beats CROLLA, which he's expected to do, then it's a further unification against Comey, and that's an interesting matchup because Comey is tough like CROLLA. He's never been stopped. He's battle tested. You know, his only 2 losses were really close fights that maybe he could have won against Robert Easter and against Dennis. What's his name? Russian fighter. Shafikov, Denis Shafikov in Russia. You know, if you're going to have a close fight with a Russian fighter in Russia, that lets you know, you know. And Comey's on a winning streak. He's looking good. He's got a lot of confidence. And it looks like he's punching harder now. He's getting knockouts. He's knocking guys out of there. So he's tall, he's rangy, and he's got that power. I don't think CROLLA has the power that Comey has. I think CROLLA has got certain fighting, certain attributes to his style that might make the fight more entertaining or might make it harder physically on Lomachenko, you know, minute by minute with that pressure and the body attack. CROLLA's a good body puncher. Comey can bomb you from the outside. So, you know, I don't think there's any shortage of challenges for Lomachenko at lightweight. I know fight fans, they want to see fighters bounce around in different weight classes and all that kind of thing. But Lomachenko's already done that. He's won titles at featherweight, junior lightweight, and now he's at lightweight. And I think he realizes that lightweight is probably his ceiling. I've heard him talk about that. And just looking at like the size of his head and like his bone structure, even compared to CROLLA. Like CROLLA looks that much bigger, and he probably will be a lot bigger on fight night, like heavier. I think Lomachenko is going to stay put at lightweight and just say, okay, I'm going to take on all comers. And that's great because there's a lot of really good, talented, young lightweight contenders like Teofimo Lopez. And who's the other kid? He's real young. He's his own promoter. He's out of Vegas. What's the kid's name? I'm spacing out on his names, fight fan. Devin Haney. Devin Haney. Yeah, exactly. Haney became a top 10 contender, at least according to Ring Magazine, before Teofimo Lopez, who was Ring Magazine's Prospect of the Year in 2018, did. But now they're both top 10 contenders. They're outside the top 5, but they're getting better with each fight. And they're really young. They're like 20 and 21 years old, but they're going to be ready soon. So, you know, these are fights that we're going to be talking about in 2020. So I don't think there's any shortage of challenges for Lomachenko at 135.
You see those fights, maybe a couple more years for them. But a fight that...
I don't think we have to wait that long.
Not that long?
I mean, honestly, you know, Teofimo Lopez, I think he's struggling to make 135 pounds. He's pretty buff, explosive athlete, you know, underrated skills and ring generalship. Excellent counterpuncher, but I think they're looking at moving to junior welterweight to 140 pounds. So they would take a Lomachenko fight this year. I think Top Rank will let it marinate until at least the first quarter of 2020. But I think those are fights that we could see in both of them. You know, Devin Haney and Teofimo Lopez in 2020, because they're so precocious. Like their talent level, they kind of remind me like Fernando Vargas. You know, you don't have to wait too long to get them to their first title shot. They could do it, you know, or even, you know, Oscar De La Hoya or even like Floyd Mayweather. They were fighting for their first world title before their 20th fight. They were doing it like, you know, bout number 14, 15, 16. Like, I think those guys are that kind of talent. They're not Olympians, like Mayweather and Vargas and De La Hoya were, but I think their natural ability, their talent level is there. They just need a little bit more pro seasoning. It won't take long, though.
Hopefully you're right. That will be very exciting fights to see. But the fight that I was going to mention that was talked about a lot, Mikey Garcia. Obviously now he has a loss with Spence, but for many it's not that, I want to say, not that big of a deal to lose to him because we know of the challenge. So this fight between Mikey Garcia and Vasyl Lomachenko, do you still see it happening?
It's going to be hard because not only does, each fighter kind of have their promotional affiliation, which brings network or platform obligations, so ESPN with Lomachenko and Fox and Showtime with Mikey Garcia. That's going to be harder to work out than the two fighters coming together. And then on top of that, there's Mikey Garcia, used to be with Top Rank, and it was kind of an acrimonious split. Like, they didn't just go their separate ways. There was a court case, there was arbitration, there was a lawsuit. Mikey sat out for a couple, he lost those years, of his prime. There might be hard feelings. So I think it's going to be difficult. I hope it happens because the Spence fight proved that Mikey Garcia is not an elite welterweight. He's still an elite lightweight, and we like to see elite talent face each other in the proper weight classes. That's what we want to see as fans.
Now, speaking of top elite champions, we have here in the room, we have Gilberto Zurdo Ramirez and Callum Smith. They saw each other. Yeah, they saw saw each other yesterday. Yeah, they're somewhere in here. But yesterday they talked.
Giants, man.
Yes.
Like you got to be big to be a super middleweight, but they're huge for super middleweights. I look at their height and their bone structure, and I'm like, how do you guys make 168 pounds? I mean, they really are light heavyweights. And I'm sure they would be very comfortable fighting at 185 pounds. But yeah, no, Bob Arum and Eddie Hearn, their respective promoters, they've talked a little bit about that fight. They bantered about it, during the press conference. I think it's possible. And if they did, that would be the Ring Magazine champion fighting like the #2 contender. You always like to see that. You always like to see the champion take on the best possible champions. It would be a unification fight because if Ramirez drops down to 168, I think he still has that WBO title. It hasn't been declared vacant yet, so that's a terrific fight. And they should do it this year because I don't think Ramirez can make 168 much longer. I think he's ready. I think he'll fight and feel a lot better at 175 than he has been fighting at 168. I don't think he's looked that great in his last couple of fights at super middleweight. My hunch is he's going to look a lot better at light heavyweight.
Yeah, we have him fighting this Friday at 175, testing the waters at that new weight class.
Against Tommy Carpinci. Carpinci, I think, yeah. And he's a veteran, yeah, and that's a good measuring stick.
So he'll test out that division there. But he said it himself, like, you know what, I'm willing to go down to 168 for that Smith fight. So hopefully we see that fight.
And that's what we want. We want special fights, and Smith deserves it. He entered the World Boxing Super Series tournament. He won it, so he was willing to take on the best. Back to back to back to back. He did that. He beat George Groves. He might have been a slight underdog. I'm not quite sure. Even if he wasn't a betting underdog, I think there was still a lot of people who had doubts about him, and he answered those questions. So, and he's been sitting out since then. I mean, that was last year. What was that, like September? So, like, British fans are like, dude, you got to fight, man. You got to. That's great. You won that tournament. You're Ring Magazine champion, but it's what have you done lately? Like get in there and fight somebody. So, if he were to fight Gilberto Ramirez, that would be awesome. Yeah.